Okay, so this is the stuff that I'm going to ask you to do on the final exam. I put a couple other things in here in my little resources subfolder. I put an image and then a very simple JSON file. I'll give you something like these two. It'll be an image, maybe a couple of images, but probably one, and then a very simple JSON file, so you don't have to write in JSON. Now, let me get this out of the way. I told you at the beginning of this, or not the beginning, but before the midterm exam, that, yeah, we're not going to do arrays on the midterm because we're going to do it on the final instead. And I don't think so. I think we're just going to focus on view for the final and see how that goes. I have a feeling you guys are going to get done with this pretty quick, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So we're just going to stick with this for right now. So you don't have to worry about learning all of those functions on arrays that we did at the beginning of week 3, although I think they're pretty cool. I think you want to know about them, but I'm not going to test you on it. So I'm going to go back to my workspace, and I'm going to ask you guys to create a view project scaffolding using Vite. Okay, so that's going to be on the test. So if you know how to open up a folder in Terminal and go through this process where you do npm create Vite at latest, right? Let it do its thing. And I will probably ask you to name it after your last name and then something like that. I'll ask you to do Vue and JavaScript just like we've been doing. Then you'll have to know how to change directory into your folder structure, but it tells you what to do right there, right? npm install to get all the dependencies in there, all the modules. Okay, and I'll get that going just so I can check it and see if things are working. Refresh. Here's the new one. I'm checking the counter. It's all good. Okay, cool. So things are working. So then I will ask you to make modifications to the view.app, that file that they give you. Now, before doing that, I will take, well, let's see. We'll go into my resources. Let me grab the image and the JSON file, because like I said, you're going to have to use something like these. I'm going to copy them, and I'll tell you to put those into the correct folder. Let's see, where am I? This final. I'll paste them in here, and then I will take the JPEG and throw it into the asset subfolder. And that would be fine for that part. Now let me go ahead and go to this guy right here. I'm going to open a new folder, add Bispo final, and then going to source and app.view. And this is where you start making the changes. So the first thing that you would want to do is get rid of the boilerplate stuff. So get rid of the stuff, oh my goodness, go away. Got to make sure you get rid of the setup. Like we were saying, the scoped attribute on style doesn't matter so much, but the setup attribute on the script does matter. You definitely do not want that in there unless you're using it to import scripts from other files. And we're not doing that. Get rid of all the stuff in the template, get rid of all the boilerplates, CSS down here. So you start with something like this. I'm going to save that. And then, so within the script, see, this is one of the big important things, is just knowing the structure of the stuff that needs to go in here, right? Knowing that you have to do an export default. And that's going to be a big object. And it's got to have, no matter what, you need the data method. So data, and within the data method, you're going to be returning an object like so, and then whatever data stuff goes is supposed to go in here. So if I say, yeah, create a property for, and assign it to like your first name or something like that, then this is where that would go. You put your properties in here. You're also going to have to do mounted, this guy here. I'm not going to ask for methods because, well, like I said, I'm going to demo that and record it sometime tomorrow morning. And that's something that we will never have gone over in class. I don't think we have. So I certainly am not going to ask for it for the test. So if I ask you to create a variable called, I don't know, file name, and then ask you to put in the file name of the image, I think it's egg.jpg that I'm using here, then just know that this is where that would have to go. And then if you were to put that into the template here, but then I would ask it in such a way that you wouldn't just put in the actual pathway here, but you would put, like you would ask for the actual file name over here. So this would have to be one of those weird concatenators. First of all, you'd have to put the colon at the front of the attribute name, right? It's attribute binding. And then you'd have to get that pathway, which is source/assets/ and then concatenate that with file name. The idea being that file name might change at some point. Maybe at some point the user selects a different file name, and then that would have to change in a variable here. So that's why you wouldn't just hard code this in. And then you could just put file name here. So let's test it here, and let's see. It's not liking it. Why doesn't it like it here? Missing semicolon. Where do I have a missing semicolon? Oh, put this in entirely the wrong place. Mounted does not go here inside data. It goes outside of data. It's alongside. It's a sibling of data. There we go. And it still doesn't like it. Why not? Because I'm missing a single quote here. There we go. Okay, there we go. So this is getting too complicated. I mean, I've already gotten myself into all kinds of trouble with this, so I will simplify this down, right? I won't make you guys do the concatenation in here because I'm just seeing how quickly that can spiral out of control. Instead, it will be something like this, where you're given this pathway here, and let's call this like image source or something like that. So that's all you'll have to put in here. And then that means that we will also need an alt tag like that. Okay, there we go. That'll be simpler. I won't make you do the concatenation inside of here because obviously it's easy to get into trouble with that. So it'll be something like this. I'll tell you exactly like what to put in for one property and exactly what to put in for another property, and then ask you to do something like this. Now, one thing that I will do in addition to this is ask for a conditional on this view style, a directive. So doing like if equals, and then let's say alt tag. If there is an alt tag, then display the image, and right now there is, so it does. But then if I remove this, turn it into an empty string, then it does not display the image because it doesn't have anything to put in the alt tag. So that actually makes perfect sense. So this is going to be something pretty close to what you'll see on there. There's some other properties. I might ask you to do something like title with some kind of string, and then do, because we still have to do some data binding on the page. So let's say title equals IS450 and IS450L, right? And then some simple data binding to get this onto the page down here. So like an H1, and then the data binding is the double handlebars here. It's a little bit dangerous to use something like title just because there exists something in HTML called a title, both as an element and as an attribute. So maybe something like page title might make a little bit more sense, be a little bit more unique. And let's see, it doesn't like it again. I'm running into all kinds of problems here. Page title. Did I forget a comma? Yeah, I forgot a comma. This is a very common error for me to forget a comma. I'm not alone in that. There we go. Oh, and we never filled the alt tag back in, so register. And there we go. That's going back in. So good. So this is the regular data binding, and this is the attribute binding, and then this is the conditional directive here. So the last big part of it is going to be fetching and looping. So fetching some data from an external file. In this case, I put in this very simple numbers.json. It won't be exactly this, but it'll be something like it, something very simple. I have a very simple array or a very simple object. And you'll want to use mounted to fetch the data and then loop through it on the page. So this is, let's see, what is this, numbers? So up here in the data, I'm going to put in numbers and then give it an empty array, right? And then this empty array will be populated when we fetch that data and loop through it. So inside mounted, you'll do your fetch call. So fetch, and then it's, let's see, source slash numbers.json in this case, then response, and it is JSON data, like most data these days, so response.json.then. See, I'm getting the whole thing in this time. And then, let's see, this.numbers equals data. Now in this case, in the numbers.json, I've only done it as the single array, right? It is possible to do this as an object, which is like most of our API calls that we've seen, I think, where you start with the, the curly braces on the outside, and then that's how you give this guy a name. So say numerals or something like that. And this is, well, okay, I need to put this in double quotes. I always forget to do that. Now, if I did something like that to you, then instead of just this.numbers equals data, you'd have to find out what in here you're going for. So it would be data.numerals, like that. But in this case, it'll probably just be the simple array. So just to let you know. So probably something just like this. Okay, so this.numbers equals data. And then, see if that gives me an error. Response is not designed. I must have misspelled something. Response. Yes, indeed. There we go. That looks better. And then let's loop through it. So I don't know if I might ask you to put them into a list. I might just ask you to put them inside paragraphs. Let's see if we do paragraphs here. Let's see if I do a div, like ID equals numbers. And then we'll do the P here. And for this one, we're going to do another directive, but it's going to be that that for loop, so v4. And it should be what we need inside numbers, so I'll say number in numbers. like so. And let's see how it comes out here. There they are, 1, 2, and 3. So it's going to be something like that. Like I said, there might be more than one image. So in that case, I would ask you to loop through the images, in which case there would be a JSON file for the file names, just like there was for that gallery demo that we did a couple of times. But either which way, it's going to be this stuff here in some configuration. So you're going to have to be able to create a Vite scaffolding, easy pie, and then open it up in a browser, npm run dev in order to test your work. And then open up app.view, get rid of all of their boilerplate stuff. And the most important part is probably just knowing how to build this stuff here. Knowing that there's an export default as an object, and inside of that there's a data method and a mounted method. And do them as simply as they're not nested like I did at first. And then anything you want to be able to use on a page has got to be returned from this object inside the data method, right? And that's when you can start doing the data binding and the attribute binding down here, the VIF and so on. The V4 is going to be related to a JSON fetch call that will go inside mounted. And I think that's enough stuff. I think if you guys can do that, then that's a good thing. I don't mind if you look at your project code while you're doing the final exam. I'm more concerned with, can you do it, right? And there's enough stuff different about this, or there will be enough stuff different about this from your projects and from my demos that it's not like you'll just be able to copy and paste code from one to another. You'll have to put some unique stuff in here that we haven't done yet. But I don't know, how do you guys feel about that? You guys think that you can do that stuff for the final exam on Wednesday? Anything seem too difficult? All right, cool. I think this is doable. I'm not going to ask for any CSS. If you do some, it will probably be extra credit if you do something cool with it. But other than that, it'd just be, can you build the scaffolding and make some simple view stuff happen here? So I will go ahead and stop that recording.